Hey guys, today we have on the show Lauren Less. Her story, like most who come on this podcast, is unbelievable. The amount she's had to go through for someone at such a young age, the amount of diagnoses, the amount of symptoms she's had to deal with, and still come through on the other side, not only better herself, but also helping others, spreading a hell of a lot of awareness, a lot of tools and techniques. This one's a super interesting episode, really inspiring. So let's get into it. I have been, pretty bad at I think I didn't turn up to one interview. I have rescheduled a load of other interviews, and Lauren has been an absolute saint and bed with me until so we're here. Lauren, how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, excited to be here.
Good. Well, look, like obviously, I've checked out your story on Instagram and your website, and got a feel for it there. But it'd be good to, and what's really good about these stories is really understanding what life was like, I guess, before things got a little bit crazy with people's health. So, what was life
Yeah.
like early on for you, health wise? Were you someone who had health issues? Were you a healthy person? And then could you just take us through that beginning part of the story where you first started to actually get symptoms and stuff?
Yeah. So I was like pretty healthy until I would say like middle school is when I started having some symptoms. And it's weird. Like it's a weird thing because looking back, I know now what was going on. But when I was in middle school, I just thought like, okay, everyone feels like this. Like everyone's tired all the time. But it just like progressively got worse as I got older until it got to the point where I was like, okay, I need to figure out what's going on.
Mm,
But so I would say like I can remember before middle school, like having waking up with energy in the morning and like being able to like run around and play sports and stuff like that. Um, yeah, and then I think looking back now, I can see like, okay, these things like triggered all this stuff. But while it was happening, I didn't really know what was going on.
yeah. Did you so in middle school you're like what 12 years old, like 11, 12 years old?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, okay. And were you going to see like doctors at that point, or was it just this is just how I kind of feel?
I did see doctors a little bit. I think they just like did blood work. Something came up on my thyroid and they were like, never mind, it's fine, you're good. Like you're probably just like going through puberty. And so that was it. After that, yeah, they kind of just were like, you're fine.
Right. And so what happened? So you go into your more of your teenage years and beyond. At what point did you have to seriously start taking a look at it and yeah, what happened then?
Yeah, okay. So in high school, I had like pretty severe GI issues senior year of high school. That was like looking back now, I'm like, okay, that was after I had mono for the first time. And so I think that probably triggered it. But I got bit by a tick in middle school. That's like what I think was the first trigger. Could be like mixed with puberty because I've been diagnosed with EDS, so like puberty is a trigger for that. So, then I went away to college and like was drinking a lot, probably not eating the best. And then I think I just like progressively got worse over time until after college. And then at some point after college is when I went to go to Mayo Clinic, because I was just like, something is not right.
Mhm. And what were the actual like main symptoms? Is it mainly fatigue or you said GI issues, but was there anything else?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I had pretty severe GI issues for probably like 7 years that were just like unexplained. Like, went to a bunch of GIs and they gave me different meds and told me I had IBS and all of that. And um, then eventually I ended up going to Mayo and they kind of like set me on the path to figuring out what was going on. But it still took me a while after that. I had a couple other triggers. In college. I got a concussion. And then after that, I was working in a place that was really moldy. So I can like look back now and be like, oh, duh, like that's what set all this off. But when you're in it and you're seeing all these Western doctors who are not going to make the connections for you, um, it's obviously harder.
Yeah. When and that's just life, right? Like bad stuff happens throughout someone's life and it
Right.
does kind of add up.
Yeah.
But I guess if someone's nervous system isn't regulated enough and or there's just a bit of a perfect storm, then it does end up some people
Right.
can be a little bit more resilient than others. How are you dealing with it? You know, you're a young woman at this time, like you'd be what in your early 20s in college and stuff. How are you dealing with that with like uh, emotionally like because of I imagine everyone around you isn't mature enough to kind of understand, oh yeah, you know, I've got stomach issues. Oh, okay, stomach issues. How are you dealing with that like at all? Were you speaking to anyone or were you just like dealing with it all on your own?
I mean, I was talking to like family and friends about it. I think so. I'm also a therapist. I don't know if I said that, but I think, I have a lot of like coping skills that I was using at the time. But I think the hardest thing was just like not having an answer, just like not knowing what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I think that it's the when you I think we're used to going to a doctor and saying, and then saying, you've got this thing wrong with you. If you do this, it'll be gone in about 5 or 6 weeks. And
Hmm.
I think it's that indefinite not knowing of like when it's going to get better, but also what actually is it that's causing it.
Right.
That's yeah. So you went. What point did you go to the Mayo Clinic? I'm just trying to work out the timeline.
I think it was like 20 2017, like somewhere around there, 2017 maybe.
And that's after college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And then they sent you on a path that wasn't quite right, and were you just getting worse at this stage, kind of staying the same?
Yeah, I would say things were getting worse. They just like continuously got worse until I really figured out what was happening. I mean, Mayo Clinic, when I went there, they were like, we think you have this genetic disorder, EDS. And so that kind of set me on the path to figuring out like everything else that was going on. But it took like years because I was waiting for like the Western doctors to test me for POTS and all of that stuff. And so yeah.
Yeah. So what did you? So you said you could you talk us a little bit about how you went about kind of finding out what was actually going on?
Yeah, so I ended up at a geneticist who told me I have EDS, like hypermobile EDS. And then I got lucky and I found a
Could,
good
could you what
what
is it? EDS?
hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Okay, okay. And what are the typical symptoms of that?
Yeah, it's a connective tissue disorder. So it's your the way they test for it is the Baton scale, and your joints like or you're hyperextending in like specific areas of your body. That's how they test for it. And then they like rule out the other types of EDS by doing a genetic test. So they ruled those out for me. They don't know the gene for hypermobile EDS yet, which is also like a whole other controversial thing because it could be related to those, it could not be, it could have something to do with something else. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of a whole other thing.
Okay. So
But
it,
er,
I'm sorry, carry on.
sorry. I was just gonna say after I found a physical therapist for that, I she was like, I think you have POTS, I think you might have mast cell activation syndrome. And then she kind of sent me to get tested for those things. And then after that, I was like, I had like in my head, I was like, I think the mold exposure really did something, because that's when I started experiencing the allergic symptoms. And then I developed like IgE, like real food allergies, that I never had before. So then I finally found like an integrative doctor and a more integrative nutritionist. Um, and kind of that's when I started actually starting to feel better.
Okay. And what were they? Did you actually get diagnosed with any of those things in the end?
Yeah, I mean, they diagnosed me with like SIRS and Lyme, and the integrative doctor did tested me for Lyme. And it was weird because they first tested me on IGeneX, and that was positive. And um later on, like 2 years after I had been working on some of these things, not like directly treating the Lyme, but working on just like building up my immune system, my nutrition. Then all of a sudden I was like CDC positive for Lyme, which was kind of interesting. But my doctor said that could just mean my like immune system is now working better, and like it's recognizing it now. So that
Mm.
was interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's kind of interesting because I feel like I spent so long trying to like figure out what was going on. And then now I've spent so long like detaching myself from all of these things, 'cause I'm like, I'm healthy. Like I'm not any of these things anymore. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. Well, I think my opinion is, and I went through the process of when you get like a diagnosis or you realize there's something wrong, you start to identify that with that a little bit. And so you start, even with people calling themselves limeys, on, their fellow limeys. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to be a limey.
yeah, right.
And even just saying you're a sick person, I think, yeah, there's that I've talked about it before. There's that like mental connection there. Did so with this integrated doctor, what was the actual approach that helped with each of these things that you had going on?
Yeah. So, okay. But throughout there, I also like had SIBO, Candida, like all this stuff. I mean, there's so much that goes into this, but like I figured out that my GI symptoms were actually like mast cell related. So once I like started supporting that, and also like I've done a lot of nervous system work and stuff like that. And I think just like approaching it from both ends really helped me. Like my GI symptoms are like pretty much gone. So a lot of that, like changing my diet, learning about like blood sugar balance, increasing my protein, electrolytes. I mean, honestly, a lot of it is mindset too. I think when you get to a certain point, like mindset and nervous system work, um, Pilates really helps me. Um,
Mm.
and then too, like a lot of it's like the basic stuff, like circadian rhythm, like making sure you're moving, making sure you're drinking enough water. Like, I don't know. It's interesting how important the basics are. Um, so
Yeah.
that's a huge part of it too,
Yeah. I
which
mean,
I'm sure you know.
yeah, no. I often, when I first started, for the first few years of me having issues, I, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And I'd, go and try and find all these things, what's going wrong. And obviously there were stuff going wrong, but then I did, when I properly looked at it, I wasn't taking good care of myself. I wasn't taking care of the basics. And if you're not taking care of the basics that keep you alive, then why would you go and spend thousands of dollars a month on all these supplements and going and doing all
Right.
these wacky treatments if you're not doing the things that's free?
Mhm.
So yeah, I try to do that. I think that's a great point. With the what's your opinion on actually I'll ask you this first. So with the nervous system work, because
Mhm.
I feel like that's a thing that people, well, particularly me anyway, go to last, because people often say, oh yeah, change your diet. So people will try and change a diet, doesn't quite work out, then they'll keep going until they get to this nervous system work. Is that how it
Mhm.
went with you? And if so, what specific things were you doing for your nervous system?
Yeah, I think So I looked my integrative doctor actually like one time just like offhandedly was like, "Oh, you should look into like the SCUPTA program." And I was like, "Okay." And I think at the time I did it, I wasn't necessarily ready for it because I was still in that like information gathering phase, like still receiving all these diagnoses. I think it was like I hadn't even been diagnosed with Lyme yet. So I think I think you also have to be ready for it, if that makes sense. Like you have to be in the mindset for it, um, and not still in the like gathering, searching phase. I mean, I think at least for me, that's not that I didn't take anything away from it. I think it helped me start to learn about it. I just feel like maybe I wasn't ready for it. But I think I've implemented a lot of mindset work on my own. And I've done like a lot of meditation and breath work and um but I think like the biggest thing is just like really changing your mindset. Like there's so much out there that's like telling you, "Oh, this is chronic. Like you're never going to get better. This is degenerative. This is like whatever it is." And I just like have learned how powerful your brain is. Like
Mm.
it just it's so interesting. Like changing your mindset around it has it's changed. I feel like it's just changed a lot for me.
Yeah. Do you feel that you could be doing all of the things that you're meant to be doing, but if you don't have the right mindset, that could be the main thing that's holding you back?
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Yeah. Well, I think that when I see, you hear of these people who, drink whiskey every day, you hear of that guy in I don't know, random part of America who ate McDonald's every single day of his life, and he's like 93 and he's like really happy, but every other part of his life is like amazing. He's really fulfilled and all of that stuff, and it just goes to show that that kind of stuff has like a big impact.
For
Is that
sure.
your therapy background there that kind of like came into it then and made you like a bit of a mindset switch?
I don't even know if it was my therapy background. I feel like because like you don't really learn that much about like the nervous system, the limbic system in school. I mean, you learn like CBT and like, changing negative thoughts and stuff like that. But I feel like I kind of did some more digging on my own and learning on my own for
Yeah.
that.
So with the brain retraining stuff, the like the gupta thing, it was like you tried it, because I've tried a number of them and kind of I totally get it, but it doesn't kind of to stick with it hasn't kind of like quite worked for me. I do prefer stuff like breath work, and I'm actually
Yeah.
doing a lot of like yoga nidra at the moment, which I find really helpful. So yeah, just I guess finding the modality which is helpful for you. Is that what you did? Like you tried it resonated, but you didn't maybe that wasn't the thing that moved the needle necessarily.
Yeah, I think I tried it and I learned about it and I was like, okay, I need to do this. But the like, I forgot what his thing was. It was like 7 steps or something like that. And
Yeah,
it didn't feel natural to me. I don't
yeah.
know. It
Feels
just
like
didn't feel
work.
right. What?
It felt like work to me.
Yeah.
It felt like homework.
Yeah.
So really didn't want to do.
Yeah. It felt forced kind of too. I
Yeah.
don't know. It just didn't feel natural.
Mm.
But I did, take away some other things from it. And then I mean, I definitely still have a nervous system work to do. Yeah. And I think it's not even in the way where I have like thoughts about symptoms like I used to a couple of years ago. Like, it's more just like I definitely still have some fatigue and I will push through it, which I know I shouldn't do. And I'm a perfectionist and I'm running my own business too. And like it's hard to like not get into fight or flight, I think sometimes. So I still have I mean, when I think about my health, I think I'm like 80% there and I know part of it is going to be like more nervous system work.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. I did just want to, for anyone listening who, we both said that maybe it didn't quite resonate with us, the brain retraining stuff. It's important to say that it does with a lot of people, and it's definitely something I always would suggest to people
yeah.
to do and to try. So yeah, just wanted to say that. So has it sounds to me like this? It's very much been a gradual improvement, and it's not like something that's overnight. You've just woken up one day and you've gone from 20% to 80%. It's been a gradual improvement. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. And it's hard to sometimes pinpoint like what really moved the needle, I guess. I
Mm.
think a bunch of things were like 5% or, 10% or something like that.
Hmm. How did you deal, or how have you dealt with uh setbacks throughout that time? I find them, yeah, a little bit challenging from a mental point of view, because then you start to doubt whether you have actually progressed. And
Yeah.
sorry.
I said, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean that happened to me like a week ago actually.
Oh.
Um I was like, what's going on? I definitely have a lot of like hormone issues that I still have to work on, which is like usually what's last.
Mm.
Um, but I like was traveling last week, or it was like a week and a half ago. I had like GI symptoms for like 4 days. I was really bloated, uncomfortable, and I was like, I thought this was gone. Like, is it back? Like, I think it's like kind of triggering when you experience symptoms you haven't had in so long, because you're like, am I doing something wrong? Like, is it
Mm.
gonna go away?
Mm. But how do you use your experience in that situation to make sure you don't kind of spiral, and yeah, and and your thoughts don't spiral?
Yeah, I think I just like told myself that was doing everything I could, and um tried to, I mean, I was in Miami, so I just like was walking a lot and laid in the sun and just like did everything I could to support my body
Mm.
extra.
Yeah, yeah. I've tried to do, and I'm actually in the middle of, like, I wouldn't say I'm not in the middle of a great phase at the moment. So it's like I'm trying to remind myself as I speak now is that I've been here before, and you know I didn't stay here, and I didn't get worse. I actually got better. And I think, yeah, reminding yourself that you've been in these situations before and it's got better, I think was
Mhm.
quite a helpful thing to do. How so you say you run your own business. Is that something you started whilst having all of these things going on at the same time?
Yeah, kind of.
You're like me, glutton for punishment.
Yeah. Yep.
Uh,
Well, it kind of started because I was working as a social worker, and it was like a very high stress job. And then I was also doing a yoga teacher training, and it was kind of at that point that I was like, something's wrong with my body. It's not like I'm not keeping up with other people. This shouldn't be happening. Um, and that was when I left that job and I started working for my dad doing like real estate stuff, um, essentially because I just wasn't doing well. And um, it was helpful at the time because it was flexible for me. I could go see the doctors that I couldn't see because I was like working all day. I had to wait like 6 months to get in at a time after work or whatever it was. So I think at the time it was really helpful. And then uh, during like the peak of the pandemic, I decided to go back and do private practice therapy, which I like a lot. And I actually recently left that job again, but I did it for a couple of years. And now I'm kind of focusing on my business and still doing the real estate stuff. But I kind of like it started my like food page kind of blew up during like 2020. I started posting every day, and then it just kept growing from there, and I was able to kind of turn it into a business.
Nice, nice. Yeah, yeah. I think it's like with me, it's like born out of necessity to support my lifestyle rather than yeah. But then you mentioned you mentioned you're like a perfectionist and kind of maybe push through things. Would you say have you noticed that about yourself in the sense of how that could have contributed to your health issues?
Yeah, I'm sure.
In what way do you think?
I mean, I've always been like that. Um, I've always kind of pushed through and pushed myself, um, and have noticed like I've been more like I started noticing I think in college that I was like always more tired than everyone else. Like after we went out for the night, like everyone would get up early and like I would be like I can't move for until like 12 o'clock. And just like even when I would go away with my friends for the weekend, they wanted to do stuff all day long and I like couldn't keep up. Um, so I think, sorry, to answer your question, I've always been a perfectionist and I think I just would try to keep up even though my body couldn't.
Yeah. Um, and if you could like looking back on like the journey that you've had up until this point, um, would you say that your life as a result of what you've been through, can you see the ways in which your life now is potentially better as a result of what you've been through rather than if you just had an easy ride like maybe some of your friends and just and been healthy the whole time? Can you see
Yeah.
it, are there aspects that are just are much better?
Yeah. I mean, I think now I take care of my body so much more than I did before. Um, just because I had to, but now I want to. I mean, I
Mm,
still have to, but I also want to.
yeah.
And I think it's just changed my mindset in like every area of my life, from nutrition to exercise to just like honestly everything. It just like changes your whole viewpoint of the world and like what's important.
Yeah, no, definitely. And how I mentioned it earlier about maybe people around you not understanding when you're younger, but in general, how has it affected your like relationships in your life? Not, I don't mean romantic relationships, but like you know, family, friends, people close to you. How has it affected those relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. It's It's hard with my food allergies, especially because it's hard for me to, like, go out to restaurants with people. Um, it's hard I don't really drink. I can't. Um, so it's kind of like it's definitely impacted me socially. Um, but I feel like I'm at the age now that I don't care as much, and my friends are accommodating, like, when we go out to eat, we'll go somewhere I can eat, um or like I'll make food or something like that, or I'll bring my own food.
Yeah, yeah. We so my group of friends when we were growing up were just I mean I was probably one of the drivers of it, big drinkers,
Can you
and
hear
they
me still?
continue. Sorry, uh, is the is it gone a bit? Can you hear me?
I think it froze for a second. Yeah, it froze
Yeah,
for a
so
second.
sorry about that. Yeah, I'm in a. I'll cut this bit out, but I'm in a co-working space, and hence why I'm in this what looks like a spaceship. But it's the internet should be super fast, and then sometimes it's not. So I'll jump back in. Yeah, I was just saying, me and my friends when we were growing up, big drinkers, big partiers, and then when I stopped doing all of that, they continued on. And so I was always a bit like, this is a bit difficult because I guess how can I still really close with them, and I drink maybe every now and then. But it's interesting this year we were all talking about taking a trip, and for the first ever time, more people are wanting to do like a non-drinking related trip and more of an activity focused trip. And I think it's just a bit of a sign of like the times now that I think
Yeah.
everyone's just a little bit more conscious of it. Maybe the age I'm at now, like I'm turning 38, so I think probably a little bit more conscious of it. But yeah, are you finding that with maybe with people you know as well? Maybe they're stopping drinking or cutting down on drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel like my friends are starting to do that too, or wanting to do more like activity related things or comedy shows or something like that instead of just like going out to drink.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure. And yeah, it creates the thing that I wished I'd been in the generation that is now, where they're no, they're all really healthy and not drinking. That would have been useful. So what would be your advice to someone now who's like in the darkest time of their chronic health journey, and they can't really see a way out, they can't really see a way forward? What would be your advice to them to like keep going and keep moving forward?
yeah, I think honestly what helps me is like the possibility that there's always more things you can try, and like it also really helps me to see other people who have been where I was and then who have gotten better or gotten healthy or whatever it is. Like, I think social media can be huge with that too. Like unfollowing the people who don't make you feel like you can get better. And following the people who are inspirational to you, who have gone through this, who have gotten healthy, who are out on the other side, and kind of focusing your brain on that. Um, and honestly, like the mindset work again is huge.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Was there ever a point in your throughout the time, yeah, when you were I don't say sick, when you were going through all of your stuff, that you thought, oh, I don't think this is going to get better. Like as I said, yeah, you were in that darkest time. Was there ever a point, or did you always have that mindset of, oh, this is going to get better?
I definitely was in that mindset at some point that, and I think it was like after I got diagnosed with all these things and I was told like these are chronic, you have a genetic issue, this is degenerative, there's no cure for this. Like all of those things that doctors tell you. Like I was told, don't lift weights. You can't exercise the way you are right now. And I look back and I'm like, but I was doing it. So obviously like I could. So I stopped because they freaked me out. And I think, it's scary to hear all of that. And then your brain listens to it. And I had to kind of like work myself out of that. And teach myself like, no, you can lift weights. Like I did everything slowly, but like and again, I think it's helpful to see people who have been diagnosed with EDS or Lyme or whatever it is, like lifting weights and being able to do all these things, to know that it's possible.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. I got told to stop doing like really intense like exercise because it was bad for me.
Mm.
And I was pushing myself too much. So I stopped. And then because I stopped, whenever I tried to go back, I would I'd just have like a big relapse. Like I would be in a lot of pain and I couldn't do it. So then I just got weaker and weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
So it's more and more difficult to get back. And then, yeah, now I am back in the gym. And some days I feel pretty terrible, but I'm not pushing through it. I'm doing it for the kind of love and enjoyment of it. And I feel strong. Whereas there's nothing worse than feeling weak and feeble. Yeah,
Yeah. That happened to me too. I got really weak and I was having like a histamine response every time I tried to exercise. Just, yeah, it's bad. But
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's hard when like a doctor tells you something, you think you should listen, but we just, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
didn't.
We're raised. Well, people still are raised now. I mean, to believe everything that the doctor says.
Yeah.
unfortunately, and not question it. And yeah, it's there's trauma. I don't want to throw that term around too loosely, but there is trauma in itself of like all the things that we are told by doctors that then stick in our brains, just like you said then,
Yeah.
which can be really difficult to get over. What what would be your looking back at you when you were at let's say in college, what would be your advice to Lauren in college now? What would be your advice? What would be your advice? Like the one thing, if you could tell her one thing, what would that be?
Mm, Probably just to take better care of my body, honestly. Um, I was, I'm sure drinking a lot did not help me.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And there was nothing with you didn't like mindset back then, or do you think it was more like the physical stuff that you were doing?
I think at that time I didn't even know that I had anything going on. Like I knew I didn't see that. That's kind of what I was saying before is I knew that I would wake up and I didn't have energy and I didn't feel well. I didn't really have that many GI issues in college. They kind of came back after college. So I just like thought everyone felt like that all the time.
Hmm.
That's what was weird. It's like I until it got so bad, I didn't realize that like when my friends said I'm tired, that they didn't literally mean like I'm so fatigued. I wake up, feel like I never slept, like stuff like that. I think
Mm.
I just like didn't really realize how that what I was experiencing was different or
Yeah,
so different. I just thought, oh, like my body doesn't respond to alcohol well. Like I have bad hangovers and I have to sleep more than other people. Um, so it
yeah.
just, yeah, I didn't really know that I was like dealing with something else.
And what's your like daily routine right now to take care of yourself? Like, what are the things that are non-negotiables that you do all the time? And then maybe what are the things that you wished you did, but sometimes maybe you don't do as much?
Yeah. I wake up in the morning and so I usually go in the sun, but Chicago is not very sunny right now. So I do red light instead, which that is one thing that's obviously not free that I feel like has really helped me not being in the sun. Like obviously the sun is free, but if you don't have access to it, the red light has really helped me as like a substitute for that. Um, Electrolytes and water. I drink matcha or mushroom coffee. Um, I make sure that I eat within like an hour of waking, which I wasn't doing before. My stomach was so bad that I would like just not eat till noon, and I was probably like throwing off my blood sugar and making everything worse. So eating enough protein, trying to balance my meals as much as I can. What else? I do something in the morning, like I'll either journal or like do breath work or meditation or like I read like Joe Dispenza or like listen to I do sometimes I do like EFT. It kind of depends on the day.
Yeah.
Um and then I try to do some kind of movement like Pilates or something else. Um what else?
What about in the evenings? Like, how do you make sure that were you always a good sleeper? Like, was that something you had to work on?
No, I was a good sleeper. I could sleep anywhere. I could sleep like I just would wake up and feel like I haven't slept.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So, um, that is one thing that I still need to look into because they think I have sleep apnea and that might be still causing some fatigue. So that's
Uh,
like another
yeah.
thing that
Sure.
it's like yeah.
Have
So, um,
have you read the book Breath?
mhm.
Yeah. Have you the guy he went on Joe Rogan and he talks about Joe Rogan podcast and he talks about sleep apnea and he talks about how he did this thing where I don't know, listen to the episode, I'm gonna butcher the
Okay.
explanation. It's really, really interesting and he talks about how he had this fixture in his mouth. Um yeah, it's really interesting. What was it you mentioned about eating for in the first hour? That's interesting because obviously there's so much like in it's like fashion
Yeah.
how to fast and
Mhm.
for a while, and that's meant to help. So what's the thinking behind eating straight away?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because I've done like a continuous glucose monitor before and I have like blood sugar crashes and stuff like that. So, and I've noticed like the symptoms that I have. I don't have like puff symptoms all the time anymore, but when I do, I've noticed they kind of correlate to like a big blood sugar spike and crash or my blood sugar dips below where it's supposed to. So I think that like that's important for me to do. But obviously everyone's so different. That's the thing too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah. That's. Yeah. I think for me, definitely holding off food is a better idea. I think it's all of these things, which is why it's difficult because I think everyone sees
Right.
that something can work for someone, and they're like, "Oh, I need to try it," and then it doesn't work for them because we're all so different. Um,
Mhm.
Cool. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I'd love to, you mentioned you're kind of at 80%. I'd love to get you back on in like a year or two and hear about that extra 20% that you got and how that's worked for you. If I know
Okay.
you've got a great website, and yeah, I was complimenting you on your name, Less with Law. If people wanted to reach out to you or contact you at all, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, they can message me on Instagram at lesswithfloor, um, or email me at lesswithfloor@gmail.com.
Okay, awesome, cool. Well, I'm sure you'll get some people reaching out to ask you a few questions. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for bearing with me, and we finally got recording
Yeah.
it. Really appreciate it. Thank you.